The last time you checked your phone was 47 seconds ago, and you're about to check it again. Not because anything has changed, but because the silence is becoming unbearable, and you need to do something with the anxiety that's building in your chest. You're waiting for a text, a call, some sign that the connection you're afraid of losing is still there. And you know on some level that this is irrational. You know that people get busy, that delayed responses don't mean rejection, that your worth isn't determined by how quickly someone replies to a message. You know all of this intellectually, but knowing doesn't stop the fear. Nothing stops the fear. You felt this way for as long as you can remember, this desperate, drowning need to be certain that the people you love aren't about to leave. You've learned to hide it, mostly. You've learned not to send the fourth text when 3 have gone unanswered. You've learned to perform calm when everything inside you is screaming. But the performance is exhausting, and some nights, like tonight, you don't have the energy to pretend you're not falling apart over something that other people seem to handle without effort. You wonder what's wrong with you. You've wondered this for years. Why can't you just relax into relationships the way other people seem to? Why does every moment of distance feel like the beginning of the end? Why do you need constant reassurance when you know how unattractive that need is, how it pushes people away, how the very thing you're doing to feel secure is the thing most likely to create the abandonment you're terrified of? Here is what no one told you. There's nothing wrong with you. What you're experiencing isn't a character flaw or a weakness or a failure to be rational. It's your nervous system responding to a perceived threat using patterns that were established before you had any conscious memory, before you had language, before you could possibly have understood what was happening to you. You learned to fear abandonment because at some point in your early life, abandonment, or the threat of it, was real. You think about your childhood, and maybe you can identify the source, or maybe you can't. Not everyone with anxious attachment had obviously neglectful parents. Sometimes it's subtler, a caregiver who was physically present but emotionally inconsistent, a parent whose love felt conditional on your behavior, a household where connection was unpredictable, warm one moment, withdrawn the next, for reasons you couldn't understand or control. What matters isn't the specific events, but what your developing brain learned from them, that attachment is fragile, that the people you depend on might disappear, that you have to work constantly to maintain connection because connection doesn't maintain itself, that love is something you can lose if you're not vigilant. Your nervous system encoded these lessons at a cellular level. It built an alarm system designed to detect the earliest possible signs of rejection so you could act before it was too late. This is why you notice changes in tone that other people miss, why you interpret neutral statements as criticism, why a slow response feels like a door closing. Your brain is scanning for threats constantly, and it's very good at finding evidence for what it already believes, that you're about to be abandoned again, the way some part of you has been waiting to be abandoned your entire life. Now, here's the painful part. The strategies you developed to cope with this fear often create exactly what you're afraid of. You reach out too often, seeking reassurance, and the other person feels smothered. You interpret distance as rejection and react with an intensity that confuses or overwhelms them. You become so focused on monitoring the relationship for signs of danger that you can't actually be present in it, and your partner senses that what you want from them isn't connection, but confirmation. You're not trying to push people away, you're trying desperately to keep them close, but your methods are calibrated for a childhood environment that no longer exists, using strategies that made sense when you were small and helpless, but backfire now that you're grown. The child who clung wasn't wrong to cling. Clinging was adaptive when your survival depended on maintaining proximity to caregivers who might leave. The adult who still clings is using outdated software, running a program designed for a threat that's no longer present. You've noticed that you're attracted to a particular type of person, the one who runs hot and cold, who's available one moment and distant the next, who keeps you guessing about where you stand. You tell yourself this is just your type, just chemistry, just the way attraction works. But it's not random. You're drawn to inconsistency because inconsistency is what your nervous system knows. It feels like home. The reliable, consistent people who would actually be good for you feel boring somehow, like something must be wrong. You don't feel the spark, the electricity, the pull. What you're calling spark is actually anxiety. What you're calling chemistry is your attachment system activating in response to perceived threat. You've been mistaking love for fear your entire life, chasing people who trigger your wounds and dismissing people who might actually heal them. And every time a relationship ends, because they always end this way, don't they? With you wanting more than they can give, with your need eventually exhausting their capacity, you take it as proof that you're too much, that your love is a burden, that the desperate wanting inside you is exactly why you'll never be wanted back in the same way. But that's not the truth. The truth is that you've been trying to solve your attachment wound by finding someone whose presence will finally make the fear go away, and that person doesn't exist. No one can be present enough to fill a void created in infancy. No one can reassure you enough times to convince your nervous system that this time is different. As long as you're looking for external validation to solve an internal wound, you'll keep ending up here, anxious, exhausted, checking your phone in the dark, and hating yourself for caring so much. Healing doesn't look like finding someone who never triggers your fear. Healing looks like learning to tolerate the fear without letting it run your life, like sitting with uncertainty and discovering that you survive it. You start by noticing when the fear arises, not judging it, not acting on it immediately, just noticing. This is my attachment system activating. This is old Cain, not current reality. This is a child's terror living in an adult's body. You learn to parent yourself through the panic the way you needed to be parented and weren't. You tell yourself, I know you're scared. I know this feels like dying, but we're okay. We've survived this before, and we'll survive it again. The person you're waiting to hear from is not the source of your safety. You are. Some nights, the fear will still win. You'll send the message you shouldn't send, seek reassurance that only makes you need more reassurance, collapse into the pattern that's kept you trapped for years. That's okay. Healing isn't linear. But something shifts when you understand that the fear isn't a sign you care more than others. It's a scar from a time when care came with conditions. And you can learn, slowly, that you are worthy of love that doesn't require constant proof, that some people will stay even if you don't chase them, that the desperate grip you've had on every relationship has been hurting your hands far more than it's been holding anyone close.